Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome down the security rabbit hole to yet another edition of your favorite cybersecurity podcast, the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast, coming up on the end of our 15th year here in September. James, it's a lot of podcast episodes.
It's a long time.
We've known each other a long damn time, buddy.
I know. It's hard to believe that it is that long. I mean, it just feels like a year ago. I mean, I don't know.
It does. I feel like just yesterday we were talking to, we had Santa on the show and it was like just a little bit ago. Anyway, just a quick plug because he sent me a copy and I want to make sure you guys all get it. If you haven't read this, the GCCISO Connection, this is an awesome book. And if you're in the executive branches, Tumo wrote a killer. You guys got to go check this out. This is awesome. Mine came unsigned, Sean. So I don't know what happened, but maybe like it didn't
Mine too.
come with the proper.
Mine too,
what?
Raf. I thought the same thing. I was like, what? I mean,
Sean, come on. You're slacking. You're slacking. All right. So today's episode is about something near and dear to my heart. And I've got some friends that live and breathe this space, but it's about customer success. And, it's not necessarily a hard security lane topic, but like I told you guys, this podcast really is not just cyber. It's the things that support us and the things that we have to be aware of and a part of. And if you're on the vendor side and you're a security person, or if you're on the buyer side and you're a security person, you probably know the customer success organization. It magically started as a thing right around the time SaaS started. We'll talk about that in a second. But I've got two really good friends of mine. One I currently work with, my buddy Steve. Mr. Dakhe, say hello.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
And Steve, that's not a virtual background, just to be clear. You are sitting in a cabin in the woods?
It is a cabin in the woods. Those are real trees.
I love it. I love it. You can actually touch grass. It's beautiful, as the kids say.
Yes.
The opposite of which is my friend Nick Puetz over there. Nick, you and I go back to an infamous photo in which we will not talk about. In our Optiv days. Good to see you again. How are you?
Good. I was not the same background as Steve. He's got the live trees. I've got the dead ones back here, I guess. So it's nature style.
Yours are the finished version.
Yes.
Right.
There we go. But things are good. Excited to chat this morning.
All right, so let's bomb right in because customer success is a place and a function that stood up in most of the vendors I was at, and certainly coincidentally, probably not timed, with software as a service becoming when everything started becoming a subscription or a service, and every company out there became a service, somehow services related company. Customer success popped up. And I think that's because we went from selling our customers things, a 3-year contract, a piece of software, and like, adios, on the next one, we'll see you later. It suddenly became a month-to-month subscription or a year-to-year subscription. And we had to make sure customers like didn't hate us and wanted to renew with us. I know that's oversimplifying, but I'm not wrong. I want to pitch this to you first, Nick, because you actually ran the department a couple of jobs ago. I don't know, at some point.
Yep.
For a hot minute, talk to me about give us your perceptions. Where did CS come from?
So, the term customer success, yes, was in line with the rise of as a service, X as a service, SaaS originally. But if you look at a lot of the things that make up what people feel are the foundation of customer success, it has its roots in technical account management, which kind of has some roots in technical support. And so while we like to pin it to this new thing, I view it kind of more as an evolution of different ways in which we're trying to enable customers, keep them happy, keep them engaging and using our products. And so I kind of trace its roots going way back to what a lot of people do kind of understand and recognize that are kind of human touch points for, kind of product-led companies that started with break fix kind of basics.
Steve, give me your impressions of customer success and why is Nick wrong?
um, I like the way you put it. Well, what's really interesting, I went through the evolution that Nick just spoke about, right? I started as a TAM, technical account manager at Extra Hub. I was one of the first 3. And then we went through the process. We were reporting to sales engineering because nobody knew what to do with customer success. Nobody thought about it that way. And then we started developing the customer success team, became the CSMs, and started building out the whole evolution of customer success within the organization. Where Nick is wrong is
I like it.
in today's world, I see in a vendor space, right? CSMs kind of functioning as often as junior sales people, right? They keep touch with the customers. They talk to the customer. Hey, how's it going? How's the account? Is everything okay? Thank you. Any concerns about support cases? Let me help you. Great. We have our 15-minute call and we move on, right? And that's not where I see the value of the CSMs. Raf, you probably know that. But
I was
think
just
some
about
companies...
to take that in the next direction, but yeah.
But I think some companies, some vendors get that wrong. They think our CSMs, our customer success team, is just a face to talk to the customer once in a while. But if we really understand the concept and the grasp of the CSM role, then I think Nick and I will probably agree on many points.
Yeah.
Hey, James, you're the only resident currently buyer. What's your impression of? You've got probably 10 CS people that you talk to all the time.
I mean,
right?
Yeah, we've got a list. I mean, every product we have somebody that we're doing quarterly business reviews with, that we're reaching out to. I mean, it's an interesting scenario. I mean, I see the point of doing it. I'm curious to know the difference between, we have technical account managers, we have CSMs, we have like a lot of different titles, but are they really all kind of doing the same thing? But it's nice. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, we like having the conversations. Like, we push for the quarterly business reviews because I want to know what new features are coming out. What, some of them, depending on which vendor it is, will get pretty in depth. They'll run reports for you to tell you you're using this, you're not using this. Stuff that, quite honestly, a lot of people don't have time to spend on doing internally to get that. I alluded a little bit before we started recording. It's one of the big problems, I think, where people get it wrong. Like, we put a lot of stake in the CSM. Really has to kind of start learning your company. And when every 6 months you get assigned a new CSM,
yeah,
it starts to get, there's fatigue on that on our side of the house. Because like, oh great, we got a new person yet again. Like, who am I supposed to be contacting?
So that makes it interesting. So this is one of the places I think I think from as a vendor for so long, and then James understanding your plate because I've been there, right? And I like it on this side because I try to be able to fix that relationship. But if you think about it, guys, the sales team, sales and pre-sales engineering, right? They meet the account, they sell into the account, and their job really is to maintain that relationship in some way in case there's more to sell, or most people just honestly like to maintain those relationships, which is really good. But they're really going to move on and sell the next thing because nobody gets paid to keep an account, right? We get paid, sales. That's just the reality of sales. Technical support isn't engaged on a one-to-one basis. So the CS really is that continuous thread that weaves through from before they buy a new customer all the way through, because sales teams change, support changes. Like, you want the CS team or that one, and I think, James, that what you're running into is that customer success person. You want that longevity. You want that relationship to be like, yeah, we're on our 4th sales rep, but guess what? That CS guy still knows me. That CS gal still knows me. And I think that's probably what you strive for, isn't it?
I would say, being a CSM, there's 2 KPIs, right? We're all about KPIs. You see that everywhere.
I like that. Go ahead.
Trust and relationship, right? You can't have relationship, you can't have trust if you engage with the customer for 3 months and you move on to somebody else. You can't have that trust if you don't have the knowledge of the product that you represent, right? I was at a Gainside conference and they shared a really good analogy. I loved it. I wrote it down and I have it almost like on my desk. You want to be trusted advisor and not trusted associate.
Mm-hmm.
right? Trusted associate, we can have a great relation. We can have a good conversation. You might like joining a call with me, like James said, and having that conversation. But if you don't trust my opinions and my knowledge in the product that I'm representing, then that's all it is. We just nice acquaintances that talk, every 2 weeks or every month or quarterly, whatever it is. If I can build the relationship as a CSM where I am your trusted advisor, where you're going to rely on me for my opinions on how to best utilize the product and how my product that I represent, fits within your ecosystem, then it's a win. But for that, I have to have that relationship for a long time. I have some accounts that I've been on for 6 years, 5 years. I'm part of that
probably
team, and
outlasted the
that's-
CISO.
I've outlasted several CISOs. Thank you. Those rotate a little more often, right? But that's where I think the value comes in. If we have the trust, if we have the relationship, we can deal with other things.
Well, and what's interesting with that is building a relationship and building trust are parallel but not the same paths. And this is where you start to get the fog of CS, and kind of getting back to like, what is CS there to do? If it's there to make the customer successful, that will build trust. And I think will amplify the relationship. But when you have a CS team that is there and has, say, a renewals quota that's tied to them, now it's hard to maintain that balance of like, I'm really here for you when everyone knows I'm also here to sell you more stuff. And there's always going to be that natural line that gets drawn to the buyers between, are you here to help me, or are you here to help me to help yourself?
That's a good.
And that's a challenging, and that right there becomes a topic that a lot of companies, I don't feel, spend enough time focusing on what is really the end goal for the CS team, because when it's not properly defined, it then becomes everything that is challenging within the organization, which results in too much on the CS.
And you don't want your CS team to be kind of the catch-all for every bit of communication, everything. But so you brought up an interesting point, Nick, and that is there's a line to walk, I think, because the CS team is the perfect, if I'm the vendor, that's the perfect team to be, or the perfect person to help the existing customer expand their buy, right? Like, nobody understands them better. You know what they're using, what they're not using, what their challenges are, what the totality of the problems they haven't solved yet. Like, there's nobody better at that. But you can't be a salesperson, right? You can't be outright trying. Like, you just can't function that way, because then you won't be what Steve was talking about. You won't be the advisor. You'll be the salesman. And so that is an interesting and difficult line to walk. Steve, have you run into that? And how do you thread that needle?
So I'm lucky enough that in my current role, we're not responsible for the renewal. Obviously, one of my KPIs is the renewal of the account. That's what represents success, but I don't deal with the dollar signs, right?
Okay.
And what I emphasize to the customer is that I'm post-sales. I am not sales. My intention is not to sell. My intention is to make sure that you're successful with the product. And if there's something that we can sell to you that would benefit you, I will be the first one to mention that. But with the intent of getting you the value, not, just getting my quota that whatever I have to meet my $1 million or whatever that is, So that's how I try to continuously emphasize through all the levels of my relationship with. I'm working with, the hands-on engineer who's just managing the product, or I'm talking to the CISO, CIO in my executive briefings and conversations. That allows me to be that trusted advisor, where if I am offering some kind of additional solution or saying, hey, you should really spend more money here, I'm coming from the place of being wanting them to be successful rather than just meeting my quarterly number.
Well, that's all about how you approach that discussion, right? I mean, if you're coming to me and saying, hey, we've run all these numbers and we've got this, and this is how this would really benefit the organization. Like, if you want to move next level maturity, then your next step on your roadmap would be to go to something like this. And if you're interested in doing that, like I can get a sales engineer, or I can get, you know, a technical engineer, or whatever. Like I'll help coordinate all those pieces. I'm not here to sit there and say you need to do this, but here's the supporting of this is why I think this would be good for you, right? And that separation of the sales engineer versus the technical versus the support, you know, the customer side, is how do you approach that? Because I've definitely been on calls where they're very heavy on, hey, let's expand out into this. Although I'll be fair, I mean, I was even on a call where I was asking about a technology that they had, and I mean, they pretty much flat out said, don't get it. So, I mean, you know, there's that, which
honesty is amazing.
Hey, I appreciate you sitting there saying, if you already have this, don't get this. It's a waste of time. Like, all right, if you don't want to sell your product, I'm okay with that, you know, but it does help build like, hey, I appreciate you know, you understand our situation, our context, and you're able to say, yeah, that's probably not what you want to go for, you know, for this case, you're better off here. And I think that makes the huge difference if they're not just walking in trying to say, hey, we got this new thing, you need to get it. This is how it fits into your world.
I mean, that's where you start truly crossing that bridge to trusted advisor.
Yeah.
Where you're actively not selling them more just to sell. Like if they see that, realize that, and it's been a good relationship up to that point, like that's a seminal moment where you get to cross that bridge, and it's a key place to be.
So, I can share a few anecdotes where I've gotten into arguments with the sales teams because I'm telling the customer that you should get something else. And the sales team, well, we're going to get more money out of this deal. But again, I'm going to be in that relationship, at least I foresee, in several years. I don't want my customer coming back, like exactly James, you said, and saying 6 months down the road, why did you sell me this thing? It doesn't give me anything. I'd rather say we sold less, but I have a really happy customer who's going to continue renewing. And when they're ready, they're going to come to me and say, hey, you have this new feature. I want that. How do we get that?
Yeah.
I think that's a super hard one to thread. I go ahead, Nick, but that's a tough one. I know what we want to do. Like if you guys in that role, right? I know what we want. We want the relationship, and everybody wants to be a trusted advisor. And I think that phrase gets so overused, but so perfect and on point in this case. Because I can tell you 2 times in my career where I've actually been a trusted advisor. One of them, Nick, when you and I worked together, that opposite to CISO, there were lots of Fortune 500 people, CISO level, that would call us and be like, I need help. I need you to tell me what you think we should do. Like, I get that call. That's a great sense of accomplishment because somebody trusts you enough to ask the question, even though you're the vendor. The other time is kind of what, Steve, the job that we're doing now is there are people that are a lot of our larger customers, because this program we're developing, that come to us and say like, hey, you know what? We like this product. We don't think we're getting all the value we can out of it. Would you come help us figure that out? And I think that invitation to a kind of a frank and open conversation, here's what we have. If you're on the customer side and you feel comfortable enough telling your vendor where you're struggling, how much you're spending, what you're spending with other vendors, what you're doing with other vendors, adjacent products you may have, challenges in the organization with this, with that, like that's a great deal of trust that customers putting in you. And you have to carry that and respect that and have to give something back, right? It's not just cool, I'm going to use that to sell them something, but those are short-lived relationships. Like the best ones are definitely the ones where you're like, I hear you, I have some ideas. Like we just finished a conversation last week where customers struggling with budget. They spent a bunch of money before. They're about halfway through, maybe a little bit less than halfway through the things that they wanted to do. And they're like, well, we're at capacity. We're stuck. I don't think we're going to be able to do any more with this. I guess it is what it is. I was like, hold on. Brought their customer success person. Yeah, I brought the account team because they need to know. We brought the one of our best ProServe folks, and we sat down with them and went, you know what? We have some ideas. We can increase capacity, better visibility, do this. They're like, wait, you mean? But we said we didn't have any more money. I was like, I know, but we can do all this stuff, no spending additional. They're like, You're the only vendor that's ever told us how to get more value without spending more money. They're like, let's go, right? But I take that as a point of pride. Like, that's a great deal of trust a customer's putting in us, and that's a lot of. You spend a lot of time building that.
And I think, Raf, that's where really CSMs become really valuable. And CSMs can be the one person, like we are where I am right now, where we're both technical and business oriented, or it might be a team where you have a CSM and a TAM as a partnership, which is also fine. But we're coming as guiding the customer on what can we do with this product and having that conversation, right? Let's explore what else can you do. Let's understand your business rather than let's sell, or where very often you'll see solution architects kind of part of the customer success teams, right? Nick, you've probably seen that, James as well. But I find the difference between CSMs and solution architects. Solution architects, you give them a problem, they solve it, right? And that's how they approach every conversation. They're just going to write a bunch of code, or they do a bunch of implementations, things like that. They have a little bit harder time thinking over business goals over long term because they're usually project based. CSM can think problem solvers, right? Sales engineers, they sell. They want to find the easiest, quickest thing to show that shiny disco ball the customer's going to love, and everybody spends money, which is great. CSMs, it's a long-term relationship, thinking both immediate needs and long-term goals.
I think something else that's important to keep in mind is CSM is not a one definition role. And what I mean by that is the way that a CSM is going to function in an organization that has a single product versus an organization that has a platform versus an organization that is a managed service type of scenario versus some combination of those two things. Like, those missions and approaches are going to vary. And that's why I come back to, like, it's really important to understand what it is we're trying to accomplish with the CSM role. I've been in all of those different combinations over my career, and trying to treat them all the same will get you into a really bad spot pretty quickly. Whether you're overextending the capabilities of the team, overextending, the expectations of the buyer, or just, generally not setting people up for success on either side. And so that's something else to consider as you're thinking about what does good CS look like. Is it's not one size fits all. It's maybe one philosophy that is the guiding light for all, but it's not one size fits all.
I'll ask this to both of you guys from a leadership, Nick, and then from a individual contributor perspective, Steve. When you look at a CS team, do you want your folks to be technical, like understand the product, know the space, or do you want them to be more relationship focused? And how do you strike that balance? Nick, start with you, because we'll go top down.
I'll start with, it needs to be an inflection of, or a reflection of, where the company and the tech is. If you have new tech that is still working out the bugs and the value prop is not necessarily fully understood, and it's a fairly technical implementation motion, I'm going to want a more technically minded type of person that some people say TAM, or like resident engineer, but that type of a skill set, because it's a reflection of what that customer journey is going to be for the buyers and for the users. Whereas with something that's a little bit more matured, or just the ease of use is much more simplistic in nature, well, that now completely changes the type of CSM, or customer success organization that I'm going to stand up. And so again, you can't come in and say, well, this is CSM across the board. You've got to look at not only the type of service or product or combination that you're trying to represent, but also a reflection of where is the company at. One of the most challenging situations I was ever in was where a CS team was being stood up because, oh, we're SaaS and we need CS, but underneath the hood, there were significant churn issues that were linked to engineering shortcomings in the product. And this was trying to create a Band-Aid or a bridge to head off churn while the engineering team could get their arms wrapped around challenges within the product. That's a very different type of CS organization that you're standing up versus other definitions of the team. So you've got to be extremely thoughtful, kind of that, measure twice, cut once when you're thinking about the CS org, and understanding that the org is going to evolve and mature with the company and the product that the company is based on, or services that the company is based on. You got to understand that that's all part of the equation, short-term, long-term.
Steve, thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts on this one. So I think as a CSM, when I represent the product, right, a SaaS solution to the customer, and when we are hiring new CSMs or growing the skills of our current CSMs, the most successful and effective CSMs need to be both business savvy, understand the business process, but also need to be technical. And the reason I've been advocating very strongly on my end that we need to have CSMs who are very technical and understand not only our product, but the industry and other tools. They don't need to be experts in other tools. Nobody can be an expert in everything, but other tools that the customers are leveraging, because when they're having those conversations with the customers through the entire levels of the organization, whether that's a hands-on or the CISO, they need to be able to represent and deliver the value and how the product that we are representing can work and integrate in the customer's environment. To have that educated conversation and trusted advisor conversation, you need to actually understand the technology, right? We live in a cybersecurity world. It's all technology based. If I'm having a conversation with the CISO and every technical question that I'm being asked, I turn around and say, well, here's my SC or here's my TAM, I'm really just the facilitator of the conversation. At some point, they're going to stop calling me. They're just going to call the person who actually knows their stuff, right? Every email is going to start with like, hey, the SC, can you answer that? I want to be the person who will continue this conversation, who they rely on for the information. And I want to be able to understand them. When I turn that around onto my own, on the product that I represent, the company that I work for, if I lack the technical understanding of our product and the companies and the customer's industry, I can't translate the customer use cases to the product team. I'm coming in with feature requests, basically transcribing what the customer said, not being able to explain why they're actually asking for it. And then I have the pushback from the product. Oh, we have other priorities, things like that. If I can actually have a meaningful conversation and become the trusted advisor to the product team, because I'm on the front lines talking to the customers, I understand the customer problems and technical issues, then I'm becoming kind of like trusted advisor on both sides. Where I've seen that not being true or being different, like Nick pointed out, depending on your organization. So if some of the partners that we work with, Raf, some of them, they're offering a solution, right? They're offering services. Their CSMs don't need to be so technical. They're really more business oriented. And I see customers really appreciate that and resonate with that, because to them, they're looking at like, hey, how many hours did you reduce? How many tickets did you resolve? What's our business relationship? Because they don't need to explain what the product does. They offer a service. They offer a SOC. They offer whatever, network performance. So in that case, the CSM doesn't need to be as technical. When you represent the product like the one that Raf and I work heavily in right now, the most successful CSMs need to have the technical background. They don't need to be an expert. I'm not an expert in everything. Nobody can be, but you need to understand what you're doing.
It's nice that they have, when they have, like I think we said, industry backgrounds as well, right? Like, hey, I'm in application security. They understand, they've been maybe through application security, they've worked it, they've, those pieces, because part of that trusted advisor if I get on a call with somebody and I start talking, and if it is technical and they try to keep up with that and they're not technical, the trusted advisor part goes right out the window because they don't, obviously they don't understand. And it's fine if you can reach out to somebody that can interpret that. But a lot of times, you're looking for that person that I have this specific use case that we're trying to use your stuff for. And if you can't understand that, I think like you were saying, Steve, you're now just the middleman that's just transferring it. Like I might as well just open a support ticket.
Yeah.
And in that case, why not just go through support? I mean, I could tell you that we've had great experience with some companies. Raf, you had mentioned like being able to say, hey, I've got this problem. How can we solve this? Or I love the product, but I wish it did this. I mean, I've got a guy that works with one of our companies all the time. Like, hey, can we get it to do this? Or we've got an issue here. And they're very responsive, I mean, and when you have organizations like that, you're very quick to be like, I love working with them. Like I see the value I'm getting for that. Are there 5 other competitors in the market? Yes. But why would I even think about switching? Because every time I ask, they're, maybe we don't get everything, but they are responsive and they're getting us the information we need.
So
I've had a very unfortunate kind of experience with a CSM who was very tenured in the CSM field. She'd been doing this for a long time, but she lacked the technical knowledge, and she was faced with a very blunt and forward director of a SOC team. And when asked technical questions, she just basically read the documentation and gave him the marketing stuff. And he said on the call, why am I talking to a marketing person? I need somebody who understands what I'm saying. That was a rough call, but that kind of a rough demonstration of what that means.
And some of that is based on the clients.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're going to get some clients that are going to be like, hey, I've got my technical people on these. And then you've got other ones that are the CISO or, they're higher level and we're just talking that level. So trying to cater it even within a company to the client can be challenging of what do I need? Do I need the technical or do I need the marketing?
Yeah. And Steve, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because there's really the intersection of 3 things that when you zoom out, it kind of becomes a little bit of a unicorn hunt if you're not careful for CSMs, because
you beat me to it, Nick.
You want to find someone that is technically astute to kind of wrap their arms around the product set. You want to find someone that I say is kind of programmatic in nature, that understands the other parallel streams that things are swimming in next to them across the cybersecurity program in this instance. So I'm looking for a little bit of a cybersecurity expert. And then I want someone that can kind of get to that notion of, positive business outcomes, or that attachment between, tech, program, and business. And so, whether it's an industry mindset or just a business mindset, like, okay, great. You've just described the combination of things that really doesn't exist out there. I'd love to know how, how you see, kind of being a CSM that's in the trenches right now. How do you create a balance between all of those? How do you think about this when talking to folks that are looking at jumping into the field? Do you look for one area versus the other as kind of like a landing foundational spot? How do you kind of bring all this together?
You use the keyword unicorns, right? And we've been struggling with that. I mean, and in the interview processes, it's always an interesting experience. You're looking for that unicorn, and it's very difficult. I think what I've learned over time by interviewing other folks, by developing my own skills, the person needs to have a technical acumen. They don't need to be very technical. They don't need to be 20-year coding experts or security experts, but they cannot be afraid of technology if they're getting into cybersecurity field, right? They need to understand the value that the product can bring to a customer, what the customer expectations are. If somebody doesn't know the details of ARR, NPS, NRR, that's fine. You can learn the acronym, the letters, and understand what we need to do. They need to be, the key thing that I'm looking for and the key thing that I'm encouraging others, be fearless and don't be afraid to make mistakes. You can't know everything. I cannot be an expert in everything, but no customer is going to fault me for saying, hey, I don't know an answer to this. I will get back to you. Make sure you get back to them.
Right.
And make sure you get back to them and not somebody else. And make sure if you say, hey, that's not my field of expertise, I'm going to get you a SME, make sure you're on the call with that SME and say, hey, I coordinated that for you, because that's my value as the glue within the organization. But the key has to be, there has to be fearlessness, and there has to be willing to communicate and willingness to persevere. And I know those are kind of cliche words, but by persevere, what I mean is you're going to have a problem. Somebody's going to be a little mean to you. Somebody's going to not pay attention when you want them to pay attention. That's okay. Just keep on going. You know, as a CSM, you'll get there. But, you know, we've had CSMs who said, well, I'm not technical. Why are you in the cybersecurity field?
Yeah.
I understand that maybe you started at some point as a very junior, but if you want to grow, if you want to develop, you need to be able to understand what these little computer things do.
Yeah.
So, Nick, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, yes, I would say, and there's lots of different ways to go about it, but you got to have a cornerstone somewhere. And to your point, like that philosophy will get people leaning forward and kind of leaning into the challenge and the confidence and the support from, you know, leadership to go and do that.
Right. And I've seen both CSMs coming from more business-oriented fields, right, or careers, and they say, okay, I don't know the technology, but I'm going to lean in and I'm going to learn enough to be able to speak meaningfully to a customer, right? And then I've seen super technical folk who coming in from like system admin, SOC environment, and now they decide to get into customer success. They're like, okay, this relationship stuff is difficult, but I'm going to talk to people who are good at it and develop those skills. Professionals can do it. People, grown-ups, you know, who are smart can do these things. It's not rocket science. I don't think CS world is rocket science.
What's easier to get somebody to learn, right? Like somebody, we always had this in the application, in the security side, right? Do I hire a developer and teach them security, or do I hire a security person, teach them development? And this, I mean, a lot of the key skills, I think that you just said, Steve, right, are really about, listen, when somebody reaches out, you reach back out. Like you reply to things, like you keep things moving. That's the biggest thing. If I'm reaching out to somebody and I'm not getting a response, yeah, all right, well, we're not building trust here. You know, I mean, it's those simple skills really of just being able to communicate. And even if it is like, I have no issue, you say, I've not seen that before. Let me go talk to this person. Great. They set it up, they coordinate, it's perfect. But then going into trying to learn the product, like how difficult is it for somebody that's been a SOC type CSM switching over to IAM? Like, oh, wow, I'm going to go work at this IAM company now, and I'm going to be the CSM for that. Sure, I've got experience doing it, but I don't know any lingo around IAM. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot to have to try to pull in from that. Like, how transferable is that to then have to try to learn the value and all that stuff that's coming out from a whole different focus, but it's still all cybersecurity?
So I came from MSP world, right? I used to work for an MSP in New York City. We kind of did like jack of all trades environment, you know. So I've never worked for a SOC. I've never worked for a SaaS company before where I am right now. The way I see it, if you have the first principles, like kind of the foundation that I'm going to learn what needs to be learned, I'm going to listen to people who are way smarter than I am, and I'm going to keep trying. I'll make mistakes. I'll have bad customer calls. I'll have rough EBRs. You know, I'll have somebody who's upset at me at some point or another, but I'm going to try again. And eventually, if you're, you know, somewhat smart, you'll succeed. And I've seen kind of CSMs as they develop in their career, develop in our organization, both collapse under pressure, whether it's in the business side or on the technical side. Or like I've had a recent experience, we have a kind of a technical evaluation process that I developed within our company, and someone didn't do that well. And he came back, said, hey, I'm going to go through the mentorship. I want to do this again in 3 months. I want to make sure that I can speak the language that I need to speak. He comes from the SOC sales world, right? So it's a little bit different. it's great. I'm sure he can learn and he'll do great. And that's the attitude that I want to see in CSMs, and I encourage it within myself, right? If something is new, we're gonna try again. Because in today's world, technology progresses. You think you know everything yesterday, and today there's a bunch of AI stuff that are doing everything that completely different.
Well, I would add to that as you kind of think about, call it the onboarding or the progression through kind of the early stages of becoming a CSM, there are going to be things that can be taught, and the expectation is you're going to come to the table and know this. So that's the product expertise.
Mhm.
There are going to be things that can be researched and you need to be aware of, but you may not know the specifics. Say that's the industry aspect. So I can learn about financial services or healthcare or whatever. So I'm kind of informed about the environment that you're working in. But then you've got to kind of get your folks ready to then know which questions they've got to ask to fill out the rest of that picture. And a lot of it is about how does the technology that I specifically know and can talk to you about, kind of fit into your ecosystem? What does your culture look like? I know that, these are things that healthcare companies are concerned with. What do these concerns look like and project into your environment? So if you prepare them for the things that they know they're going to have to, or they're going to have to speak to day one, while also preparing them with the things that they've got to come in, the questions they have to ask to start filling out the rest of that view, I've found it puts them on a good path to that long process of discovery and ultimately trust building. Because if you're curious about, if it's just question answer, there's value in that, but it becomes a little shorter lived versus a more kind of consultative mindset when you come in and bring expertise to the table while also trying to extract things out to amplify that expertise or tailor it in ways that are going to be more useful down the road. Being able to connect those dots and help a CSM understand what those dots are and how to connect them and getting them started on that path has worked fairly well in situations that I've been plugged into in the past.
All right. Well, I have to cut us off because this is 42 minutes into a 30-minute podcast. So, we're right on time, as I like to say. We're right on time. Guys, this has been awesome. I think we defined it relatively well. I think we framed it well. Thanks for your expertise and obviously your opinions here. Nick, good to have you. Steve, thanks for joining us, guys. It's been fun.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
See you in Vegas.
See you in Vegas. Ice cream's on me. All right, folks, thanks for listening. This has been, if you don't get the inside jokes, I'm sorry, you weren't there. This has been another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. We'll be back again next week, and we'll have more good content. I hope you liked it. This gets posted out on the channels, of course, questions, comments, and post them there. We had a couple of you guys that joined in live. I hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll pull in Steve and Nick, and maybe we'll do this again and kind of continue down this rabbit hole. And we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks a lot. We'll see you guys another time, another place, on another Down the